Going round, round, round. Over to you, Mark.
Hello there, and I'm Mark Lee.
And I'm Philippa Haynes, and welcome to our podcast.
It's the Accountant's Success Secrets podcast, and Philippa and I want to showcase and celebrate successful accountants who are doing great things, have got years of experience, and whose stories can inspire and encourage other accountants around the UK.
Yep, and we're going to be talking, well, obviously to our guests today, who we consider to be at the top of their game and have been for several years. And that's really important because we want to talk about some of those foundational learnings, sort of including the highs and the lows and the stories that have sort of come out of that. So we really want to dig deep and find out exactly kind of the journey that they've been on. At the end of the day, we want to see the person behind the accountant and have some nuggets and some insights to take away with us.
And our guest today will be familiar to a lot of people watching or listening, I'm sure. Della Hudson, a chartered accountant who set up her first practice in 2009. She sold it in 2017. And then in 2020, she started a fresh practice for reasons that I'm sure she'll explain today. As she knows, I'm a bit of a fanboy, and I've got 2 of her 3 books on my desk. Anything else you want to add by way of intro, Della?
Thanks, Mark. It's always nice to meet my reader. Yeah. Why did I restart having sold up and escaped? 2020, as you know, was COVID, so I found a lot of accountants appeared to have gone AWOL. I don't know why, if they couldn't cope with the remote technology or whatever. But just as business owners needed more support, some of them were getting less. I know loads of accountants who really rose to the occasion, but some just went missing, went silent. So I was able to step in there fairly easily. All my speaking engagements had been cancelled, so I had the time. Started Minerva Accountants, learning from all the stuff, all the mistakes I'd made in the first business. So I thought it'd be a lot easier, except of course you then find a whole batch of new mistakes to make.
And those are the sorts of things we want to find out about today. So I guess one of the first questions to ask you, and this is going back a little while, not that far, but what drew you to accounting in the first place? And then we can talk about the various iterations, because it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? But what at the first point, what was accountancy all about for you?
Why did I choose to go into accountancy in the first place? Well, I liked numbers, people, and computers back a long time ago, before computers were really a thing. And so I wanted a career that encompassed those 3 things. And as you go down the list, accountancy is near the top alphabetically. And it sounded like a good thing to go into till I figured out what I really wanted to do. So I started my training and I absolutely loved it. I love being able to get involved in other people's businesses to make a real difference. Because as you know, so many people have a great business idea and they set it up and they're really good at what they do, but they don't have a clue how to run a business. Whereas as accountants, we've got a lot of that. And if we don't have it ourselves, we can borrow ideas from one business, one industry into another and things like that. So when I set up my first practice, Hudson Accountants, imaginatively named, I set up a business that happened to do accounts. I didn't set up an accountancy business first. It was a business that did accounts. Proudly borrowed from everywhere I could find on how to do things, rather than just repeating the things that I'd learned in my training. But yeah, I'd spent 20 years in industry and in IT, so I was able to bring a lot more into that. And so I loved it when I first trained, and I love it now.
Yeah. What got you into the training to start with? What was it about accounting? Just you loved numbers, and so it just seemed obvious.
Well, it seemed to encompass those three things. So yeah, I signed up. Well, actually, I was going to do a computerized accounting degree in rural East Anglia, but I absolutely flunked my A levels and had to take the first degree I could, which was chemistry and management. And I absolutely hated chemistry at university, at school. But when you get to degree level, it's much more like physics, which I did like. So I did this 3 years of this degree just to in London, so the big city for a country girl, with another big change. And as all these things, it worked out a lot better in the end because I stayed broader for longer. I learnt management rather than just accountancy, and I got experience in the big city. So building on my mistakes.
And then having trained in accountancy and moved into industry and IT, what was it that drew you back to start your own practice?
Like many women, I went on and had my own children, and I had 4 years in France. So I came back and I had a 4.5-year-old and a not quite 3-year-old, and I was looking for something to do, and I thought practice would be much more flexible. So I wrote to all the local accountants, to about 28 local accountants, and 2 of them wrote back and said no thank you, and the others didn't even bother to reply. But that's one of the things I always try to reply when people send me speculative CVs as thanks, and we'll keep it on file for 6 months because it saves me recruitment fees if I happen to have something in that time. Anyway, so yeah, I decided I was going to do a few sets of books from the kitchen table just to earn some money. And having been in industry for so long, on the board and running businesses, I did what I considered the right things. And if you do the right things, you get the right results. So my few sets of accounts from a kitchen table soon grew into my first employee, and then we got up to 8 people at the point that I sold it. Wow. And it was nice to be able to offer other people, predominantly women, but other people could have the same flexible working that I couldn't have. I had to set up my own business to get it. So we all work flexible hours. And now with Minerva, we all work flexible hours as well.
Right. Well, we'll come to Minerva in a minute, but it does seem the right time to mention the numbers business, which I believe you wrote on the back of your experience with your first practice, and which, as you know, whenever anybody approaches me and they're starting a practice or thinking of starting one or have recently started one, I suggest that rather than paying me for mentoring and support, that they actually go and spend 15 quid on your book, which won't necessarily teach them everything they need to know, but it'll be very well spent, because I think one of the things that helps you to stand out compared to many others is, I believe one of the reasons your practice was successful, through knowing you and reading the book, is partly because of the time you spent in industry and with a solid business head, rather than buying into an existing practice or taking over an existing practice that's got a lot of legacy clients that haven't necessarily been operated in the way that you advocate in here. So again, another advert for it.
I mean, that's the thing that I really I was, I didn't know about your industry background, and it obviously makes a huge, I believe it makes a huge difference when you've actually been in the 4 walls of another business, and you've understood the conversations that go on, the types of meetings, some of the core issues. I mean, what was it, do you think, the one thing that you took with you and thought that that's the really important insight that I must get right from your own firm? What do you think it was? Was there anything specific?
It's definitely systems is what allowed me to work so efficiently, because I was trying to run my business around 2 small children. I had a 25-hour school week.
Yeah.
So and I could do bits and pieces in the evenings, but then sometimes you take time out of the day to go and watch the nativity play or whatever they're doing. So it was an average of 25 hours a week, and I had to work as efficiently as possible. So my key indicator was my profit per hour, not my ultimate profit. Whereas I see so many other accountants, they set up and they work longer and longer hours because they can't afford to employ somebody. Whereas systems, and that's as simple as a checklist. So you do the same thing each and every time. And my book that inspired me on that is Michael Gerber's E-Myth. So building in systems, making sure it works as smoothly as possible when a small child interrupts you, when a small child kicks your laptop off the desk on the same day that the backup drivers mysteriously stopped working. Probably also due to same small child fiddling.
In the days before cloud.
Yes, well, that was what prompted me to, because it was just me, and it was just a few hours a week, and that prompted me to move from a daily external backup to a cloud backup. And then when I got staff is when we made the move to the cloud, initially with a hosted desktop, so that having worked in what was called disaster recovery, I think it's now rebadged as business continuity. I'd worked at National Grid supporting Oracle financials, and we were able to, we had a bunker to recover the data just for the accounts department. And all these things that you think, how on earth would I replicate that in a small business? And yes, I'm probably less open to attack as a small business, but somebody else takes care of that. Somebody else does all the backups. Somebody else does all the software updates and so on, which of course you don't have now with cloud software because it's all nice and smooth and automatic. So yeah, definitely the disaster recovery was a big part of how I built things into my business so that they weren't dependent on me. And I'm a huge fan of risk analysis. Just what are the risks? And so it's all very well to have an alternate in your practice, but do you actually meet together? Do you know what the other one does? And if you're a sole practitioner and they're a sole practitioner, they don't actually have any time to run your practice as well as theirs. So it's not just a name, you need to provide some manpower and so on. So yeah, disaster recovery, and then look at mitigation, and then just get on with it, having mitigated the worst.
So you're in quite an interesting situation, aren't you, where you set up that business and then sold it, and then, as you said in your introduction, during lockdown, that you saw that there was need of support. Obviously, when you started again, you'd learned stuff along the way. What had you learned, and what did you make sure that you implemented this time?
So in the first business, I had an absolutely fabulous team, probably the best team I've worked with, but they take a lot of your time. So with Minerva, I tried the outsourcing model, which works very well if you remember it's like sending work out to a junior. You still need to check it. I think a lot of people think because they've sent it across to a qualified accountant that it's going to come back all done, but it still needs to be reviewed. And we don't let the outsourcers communicate directly with clients because the ones we use, English is not their first language. And although it's not the language that's an issue, they use quite traditional language. And we don't talk to our clients as dear sir or madam. They're, Fred, Jane, whatever, first name terms. So it's a different tone of voice that we use. So trying to make sure that that's all in our language. So you've done that, and then more recently, I'm not sure if I've told you, I acquired a small practice on the 1st of June.
Oh, congratulations. Didn't know that.
No, I couldn't remember if I told you, because it all happened right until the last minute. So as you say, Mark, it's taking on a traditional client bank from a lovely accountant and his wife, and the wife has come across to work with me, and so I now have 2 staff and the outsourcers. But that's poor Maria last month had, they have a traditional practice, the same values of client care and things like that. But poor Maria had to learn so much technology. And there's me on the other hand, I know the technology, but I don't know the clients. So June was very busy. July continues that way. Because we want to automate the back office, but without terrifying people on the front.
That prompts a related question, which may be difficult to answer in the context of that most recent acquisition. So without making it specific, are there mistakes or things you would do differently on another occasion? Tips for other people looking at such acquisitions or developments?
It's a bit early to analyse as such. I've been making notes along the way for when I do have time to analyse. I had learned from selling my first practice, it's really important to make sure that both practices are a good match, which obviously these weren't in terms of technology, but they were in terms of values and of client care.
That's so
yeah, trying to do that. And then it's all about the people. So we had to get, through May, we got all the data, uploaded it all into Accountancy Manager. So we were ready to go on day one.
Management systems are available.
Yeah. Yes. Other very good systems, that Accountancy Manager is the one that we use because it suits our practice. Horses for courses on the software, as you know.
Yeah.
So trying to make sure that we had all the data beforehand, make sure it's all uploaded. But that was lovely because we were sending out engagement letters on the 1st and 2nd of June, and the old practice, because they were doing it manually, was sending out disengagement letters at the same time. So sometimes clients would receive our engagement letter. So we had sent out welcome letters, welcome emails beforehand, and some welcome gifts. But the formal engagement letters, our engagement letter was sometimes getting there before the formal disengagement letter.
But that's,
of course, we're still trying to get half of those signed. I think we've got 60% signed now. I got some lovely emails back saying we're really looking forward to working with you, but they hadn't signed the engagement letter.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we talk a lot about technology, and if you go to any of the shows or on LinkedIn or whatever it is, but actually the fact is that really there's quite a large number of firms that are still quite traditional. And you talked about obviously outsourcing and traditional language, but that also probably includes language around accounting, which is quite frightening for most clients. But also, as you've said, that sort of traditional emails, nothing is really automated, as you said. And it does mean that there are glitches and there are pauses and there's not that sort of flow. It's kind of interesting that from day one, really, that's what you wanted to achieve, for it to be all really smooth and work really well. And not be traditional.
Della's background and knowledge and insights, able to do that perhaps more efficiently than some others have.
Yeah.
Della, what would you say singles you and your practice out today, Minerva?
And I know this is your big thing, Mark, on what makes you stand out.
Well, Philip is too, as it happens.
And Philip as well. it's I lose track of the number of times I've been told I'm not like other accountants. And I must pin down people who go, oh, what do you mean by that? But I always think it's because, I wear jeans, but obviously it's not the jeans themselves. It's sort of what they represent, much more informality. I will explain things to clients. I'm a lazy person. So if I have to explain something to clients, then we either have a help sheet or a help video on it. And I know lots of practices are starting to use Loom videos and so on. So if it's something I think I might need to explain more than once, then I create the resource. It's that systemizing things again and trying to get the team back in Hudson Accountants. They'd started to write their own help sheets, which was really good. But initially you have to start that and have the library and the resources. So it's taking the time with people. And the only way you can take that time and run profitably is to systemize behind the scenes. The back office is all systemized. So I don't want to foist the technology on the clients necessarily, although the more efficiently they can run, the better. But from our point of view, we need it. And then we have the time to have a friendly front end. Whereas if you have too many clients, you start off, you get the pricing wrong, you need twice as many clients to earn the same money, which means you are trying to do twice as much work in the same time, and so on. So just making sure that we've got the prices right, we've got the systems in the background, and then people. It's the people in the front office and the systems in the back office.
And do you have a particular focus on a particular type of client or type of person as a client, type of business, or any other marketing focus in that regard?
I should have a niche. All the marketing people tell me it's much more profitable. And we do sort of, they have to be tech savvy enough to work with us. And to make the most of us, they need to be growing businesses that can take advantage of all the advisory stuff that we do. But actually, I like the diversity. So I don't niche because I like the variety. But they do have to be the right type, but not a particular.
But is there, I mean, we all have our kind of favorites, don't we? Or those clients that, it's just so easy to work with. And I'm obviously not expecting you to name them, but what would you say, thinking about it, that sort of typifies that sort of client that you have that just is just easy for you? Is it a mentality or a mindset?
Sorry. Well, we only work with people with shared values. Otherwise, I can't do my best work for people that I can't connect with in that way. And I have turned away clients in the past who, were rather keen on extreme tax avoidance or even crossing the line into evasion. That's not the sort of thing that I want to do. Now, some people might want to work with what they call advanced tax planning, but that's I don't have the ability or the inclination for that. Yeah. So they tend to be simple businesses, and they're interested in growing. When we sit down with the initial meeting, the discovery call as it is now, it's talking about why people set up their businesses. And I've only ever had one client who set it up for purely financial reasons. There's usually an element of lifestyle. And it's always good to know the initial reasons, because, as I said, I could help them to grow, a £1 million business. But if their goal is flexibility to spend more time with their kids, there's going to be a conflict. So let's make sure, we don't grow it and you're never home to tuck your kids into bed at night, or go and watch their football matches on a freezing cold Sunday morning or whatever it is, because you're working in the office.
It makes sense, and also it allows me to reference the other book, Changing the Numbers, which is I know I told you this before, but I found it a really refreshing, distinct way of looking at advisory work, focusing on changing the numbers rather than advisory for advisory's sake. And your whole style and approach in there, I'm quite sure, comes across when you first meet prospective clients as well. And I've no doubt that that's one of the reasons why they choose to stay with you. Could you sum up what you see as the sort of secrets to your success?
This is always difficult because I don't think that I've done anything original. And this, some people call me a thought leader and things like that, but I don't feel like it. I'm a doer. Basically, I do what everybody else is talking about doing. So it's just getting on with it and always moving forwards, even if it's a tiny step. If you're having a bad day, you do something to move the business forward. So it's action, not words.
Yeah, sorry, Mark.
I love that. I just wanted to say, and I think one of the other secrets to Della's success is the genuine humbleness, if you like, and the lack of an ego. There's a lot of people who appear to be successful, but you've got to get past the ego to in the first place. Whereas Della is as genuine in real life as she is on screen here, as she is in her books, and as she is with her clients, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I pulled out just from our conversation today was obviously the technology side. And I mean, you could say that these days that's not necessarily a differentiator, but what is a differentiator is the fact that you've done it from day one. And, you were probably one of the first, really ahead of your time, and have led with that over the years. And that, I think, is really impressive. And in fact, everybody else is now trying to catch up, but you've been there and done it, sold the business, and then sort of come back and then got another as well. So, and sort of working on the technology side and the automation, and sort of bringing in all of that kind of learning that you've had over the last few years. So for me, that feels like it's really kind of what has made the difference to you. And as you said, you had young kids and needed to ensure that you could sort of work around them and only had limited amount of time. So there's a reason behind that sort of tech and that automation. But I think it's something which, has made you basically a thought leader. Even though you don't think that you are, I think it feels to me, and I'm just kind of listening out, that that's what it is, and there are others following on from that. And I hesitate to say this, but years ago, being female and doing that was pretty massive. Hopefully there is that equality these days, and that isn't something that everybody we think about kind of straight away. But I mean, thinking back a number of years, I think that's really something to be amazed by, really.
I agree, and I'm also conscious that we are coming towards the end of our time together. So Della, if anybody would like to find out more about you, I'm sure they can look you up on LinkedIn and just look up your name, and the books will show up at Amazon or wherever. But where's the best place for people to find out more about you or to get in touch with you?
The main website is hudsonbusiness.co.uk. But as you say, Mark, I'm on most social media as Della Hudson FCA.
Yeah. And Mark, where can we find you?
Well, I'm Bookmark Lee. My name's so common that my domain name is a bookmark. My business card is a bookmark. Bookmarklee.
And even my kids know my friend Bookmark Lee.
It works, Mark. There we are.
It does. It was an unexpected advantage of the bookmark, and I run a sole practice club for sole practitioners who want to get together and learn not just from me, but from other sole practitioners just like them. And what about you, Philippa? How do people find out more about Philippa Haynes and Insight 101?
Well, I'm all over LinkedIn, so hopefully people will find me there. But my website is insight101.co.uk.
Lovely.
So there
Well,
we are. Thanks so much, Della, for your time. It's really lovely to find out more about you. And actually, I've learned quite a lot. But that's probably because, relatively speaking, I'm newer to the sector than Mark, and I didn't know part of your story. So it's lovely to hear that. Yeah, that's it, Mark. Last
yeah.
words for you.
Well, if you've enjoyed the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, please share the love online. Let us have your feedback. We hope to see you again next time.
Okay, so it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. And thank you so much again, Della, for being here. And we'll say goodbye until the next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Right.